Joe Steadman. I'm super excited to talk about one of my games I like a lot. I'm going to review it for you here. I've never reviewed this game. I'm jumping back into reviewing games, and so I picked an old one. Hammer of the Scots. And let me explain why I picked this one. First, I was on the cruise, the Dice Tower cruise last month, and I brought it with me, and people were walking up and had never seen this game before and were interested. I was shocked. Like, how have you never heard of Hammer of the Scots? It's one of the most famous war games of all time. So I thought, I have to educate the public about Hammer of the Scots. 2, it's still in production. If you go to Columbia Games right now, you can buy a copy. It's the 3rd edition. This is the 2nd edition. 3rd edition is out. There's a deluxe edition that I was on Kickstarter last year and I missed it. I may have came out of retirement early if I would have known Hammer of the Scots was on Kickstarter. Then again, last year I never even heard of Kickstarter, so I guess I probably wouldn't have. All right, so Hammer of the Scots. Let's just quickly show you what this old school game has. It's called a block game. So if you don't know what a block game is, first off, it's got this cool sleeve. You don't see that nowadays too much unless you buy a Columbia game. So it's got this fold-out map, like all this heavy cardboard, but they've got neoprene now, like this. You know, that's the popular thing now. Everyone's got these neoprene maps for their games. Really cool. It's kind of expensive, but I think if you love the game, it's really cool. And it's got these blocks with stickers and cards. And my cards are in card protectors because we've played it so many times. Wait a second. What else we have? We got dice. Now, I've upgraded my dice. I've got red dice for the British and blue dice for the Scottish. So in this game, you're either playing the role of the loyal English player trying to stomp the rebellion in Scotland, or you're playing the role of Mel Gibson, Braveheart, or William Wallace, that's it. You're playing the role of William Wallace, you're the Scottish rebels. The game is played through a sequence of years. There's actually a big campaign game, or there's 2 different scenarios that you can play, the Braveheart scenario or the Bruce scenario. My wife Monica and I, we almost always just play the first scenario. It's about an hour and a half, 2 hours long, maybe less if you know the rules really well, or if one player really gets a big advantage, sometimes we'll just call it because we played the game enough to know it's not worth playing anymore at some point. Now, if you're the English, you start off with the nobles of your team being red. If you're the Scottish, they're blue. And throughout the course of the game, there's actually, and I'll zoom in and show you here in a minute, but those nobles are going to trade allegiances throughout the course of the game. Now, the winner is determined at the end by whoever has the most nobles under their control, where ties will go to the British. Unless William Wallace is still alive, then it goes to the Scottish. That's for the scenario my wife and I play. I keep saying British, but maybe I mean English. I don't know. Maybe one of the people out there can correct me. Is it British or English? 1300? I think it's the English. The British didn't come. I always get confused. And there's the United Kingdom. So this wasn't the United Kingdom yet. What was it? Monica, you're the expert.
It's the English, but the British are coming! The British are coming!
Okay, so let's talk about basic card play. If I played a 2, that allows me to activate 2 areas. And everything in that area can be moved. And I choose which one I want to do first. I'll move all my pieces, then my opponent moves all their pieces, and then the person who played the higher card can choose the order of the battle. In the case of a tie, it's always the British player or the English player. So, 2. Movement's pretty simple. Every block has a movement factor on it. It might say 2 or 3. Most of them are 2 or 3. There's a couple exceptions. So this guy can move 3. So he could go, 1, 2, 3, whatever like that. If you move into the spot with an enemy, you have to stop. The other thing is, you see these red lines here? These red lines represent rough terrain or mountainous terrain. If you cross a black line, you can keep going, and up to 6 blocks can cross a black line. But if you're crossing a red line, you have to immediately stop, even if there's no one else there, and only 2 blocks can ever cross a red line. So it makes defending the north of Scotland a lot easier for the Scottish. So that's movement. Movement's pretty straightforward. Now, combat is the classic Columbia Games combat, where once the combat's ready, let's say these blocks are going to fight each other. I declare this is the first combat. Then we're going to flip forward our blocks facing each other. And I'll zoom in on this in a minute so you can see how combat works. Now, when the combat is over with, the loser will either be retreated away or will be eliminated. And there's even a cool situation in this game where the nobles, such as this unit here, will flip allegiances. Just before they die, they say, okay, I guess I'll be loyal to the Scottish, and you replace the British version of the noble with a blue version of the Scottish, or vice versa. And that's kind of the point of the game, is controlling the nobles. Now, the winter phase, what's important for the winter is these castles. You can see here, there's a castle, here's a castle, now here's a church. Now I'll talk about that too. So during the winter phase, your units have to be in castles. And there's a lot of other little rules, not a lot, but there's little rules about William Wallace. He can be over here in this forest and things like this, but there's really not that many fiddly rules in the game. It's pretty cut and dry. Units have to be in castles for the winter. A 3 castle can support 3 units. This here is a 1 castle can support 1 unit, but if you're Scottish, it's got the church here, so the church will also let you keep another unit. So 2 units for the Scottish, 1 for the British. Every year, the Scottish player tries to go to these castles in winter, whereas the English player, the red player, every year they go back to England and start over again with full strength units. Whereas the Scottish units are going to get depleted, and then you use those same castles and their numbers on them to rebuild your units by rotating them, and you'll understand what that means when I show you the actual pieces. As you can see, basic gameplay for this is not complicated, which is why I believe it's a pretty good war game. You can teach people this game. I think it's a good introduction to block style games. It's got a great theme to it that people enjoy. Okay, so let's talk about the blocks. Here's a good example of the blocks. We'll talk about this British block here. It's got the pips on it, the 4, 3, 2, and 1. A full strength unit would sit up like this with the 4, and then it would rotate through the game as it takes hits. So a full strength 4 would get to roll 4 dice, and because it says seed 2, that means on 1s and 2s, it would score a hit on the opponents. The 2 over here means that's how many spots it can move. It can move up to 2 spots. Now the C is interesting. So you can see that William Wallace here has an A on him, and Keith has a B. So the way that fights is the defender always attacks first. So let's say that Wallace attacked this C block. Well, A's fight first, defense A, there is none. So A gets to do nothing. So attacking A gets to roll. Well, William Wallace, he's a A3 so with 4 of them, so he'll get to roll 4. And I'm thematic, so I have blue dice for the Scots. They would get to roll 4 dice. Ooh, that would be a pretty good roll for it would actually kill, because a 3, 1, 2, 3, 4 hits, 4 dice, that would completely destroy this unit. But let's say my dice weren't so amazing. Let's say I rolled this. Let's say I rolled this. Then Wallace would score 1 hit on this unit, and that unit would rotate to there. Now we go to the Bs. Well, there's no Bs on the defensive team, so now it goes to B on the offense. He is a B1, so he has to hit on 1s. He gets 3 dice. No hits. Well, now we go to the Cs. Well, the defender does have a C, so he's got 3 pips remaining, so he gets to roll 3 dice. There you go. And he hits on 2s. Oh, look at that. He did 2 damage. And the way the rules, like a lot of these games say, is you have to take it from the strongest unit first, so that'd be Wallace, takes 1 hit. And he's got 1 more hit, so he can do either, because they're both 3 pips each. So he'll do the second one on Keith. Now, that would be the end of the round. The combat lasts 3 rounds. At the end of 3 rounds, if there's still a fight going on, the defender wins, attackers have to retreat. Other than that, you could always retreat on your turn. So let's say after the first round of combat, Wallace decides that he doesn't want to fight anymore. He is an A, so he can retreat. Then the Bs would go. No other Bs, so the B could retreat. Then finally, this guy would be left, and he would win. Let's talk about the nobles. Here you can see that there's a Scottish Bruce and a English Bruce. Throughout the course of the game, this piece, only one of these will be on the board at a time ever, but whichever one is on the board is which one is loyal. So if the British one is on there, the British player controls them, and vice versa. That's the object of the game, is to control these nobles. Why Hammer of the Scots? Why should you get it? Let me tell you. 3 reasons. 3 reasons. Number 1, it's a great 2-player game. And it gives you that feeling in your belly that I love, where I'm playing against my opponent. I'm not playing against the game. I'm not moving little resources around. I have to take the nobles. I have to defend my nobles. I have to take territory. You're at me, and we play some cards. It's a great game. I love it because I can trick my wife, or she can trick me. I make her so mad sometimes that she's, oh, coffee break, and she'll get up and walk away. So if you have a game that you make your wife take a coffee break, It's a great game. Number 2, the components, the quality of the game. It's stood the test of time. It's a good quality game. It's got the wood blocks, the stickers, the map. You can get the neoprene now. It's still in production. You don't have to worry about going on eBay to find it. You can go buy a new copy yourself. Number 3, it's thematic. You really get into the theme while you're playing. There's a big map of Scotland, and if you're the Scottish player, you're running around and you're trying to hide and you're trying to attack and be all subtle, and you got William Wallace and you're going to think of Braveheart. You're going to be freedom. And if you're the English player, you're trying to stomp out that rebellion. You're pushing those Scottish player back up into the Highlands, and you get to call the other player rebel scum. So that's my review of Hammer of the Scots. I think you'll enjoy it as much as I do. Give it a shot, and I would appreciate any feedback. Until next time.
This board game review was brought to you by the letter Y.
Get out of here.
Y.
That's not how they work. Hammer of the Scots by Columbia Games. Pick it up.
People are going to be mad at you for defacing the Hammer of the Scots.
I don't care. I gotta have some fun.